Good morning and thank you for being with us on UBC TV. It is Good Morning Uganda Agenda, where we have guests in studios and we discuss a number of things of national importance. I'm Robert Charabonyonitono, in case you've just joined. Now, this morning we want to look at the sector of agriculture and the youth. To be more specific, that is youth in agroecology. This is one of the sectors that maybe in agriculture have not been paying keen attention to. And of course, we know yet where the world is moving, people are very sensitive of what they eat, how it has been grown, by the way. And also that in one way or the other determines the cost of what you're going to purchase. These days, health is a very big concern to people, and you find that people are no longer just aiming at eating anything available or anything they find in the markets, but they're also very specific on certain conditions on how these things were actually also grown. Now, joining me on set to discuss this, I have Josephine Akia Luyimbazi, who is the country coordinator, and I also have Ruth Nabagala, who happens to be the program officer. Now, these ladies are going to help me digest, better understand how best we can have youth involved in agroecological markets and agriculture. And I want to begin with the country director, the lady in blue. I must say it's a pleasure hosting you once again.
Thank you so much.
It's been some long time. I don't know where you've been, but I can see the smile on your face. All is well.
Thank you. All is really well. And thank you for hosting us. Good morning, Uganda. And we're looking forward to share with you on how we can enhance youth involvement in agroecology.
Then the lady in green with a bit of Africanacity. A lovely morning to you.
A lovely morning. Good morning, Ugandans. I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
Well, now let's begin by first of all understanding when we talk about, in my introduction, well, these are from PELAM, which is an abbreviation actually. It is quite a big word, and I'll leave them to do that. But when you talk of agriculture, where does PELAM come in? You know, how do you, and more so when you talk about this form of agriculture, and I want to begin with Nabagala.
Okay, so thank you very much. I'll start by talking about PELAM, Uganda. PELAM in full is Participatory Ecological Land Use Management. And when you hear participatory ecological, that's where now we are very, very key in how different we work on agriculture. So it's a network of NGOs that have interest in working with smallholder farmers and promoting agroecology. Yes, thank you very much.
Having told us exactly now what you do and how you make sure there is youth involvement, that will also bring me to understand how do you bring in this youth involvement? Now that we know what PELAM does, but how do you connect? Because, and I think this, Josephine, will be better to explain since you're the country director here.
Thank you so much, Kenneth. And I would like to enlighten more. As Ruth has mentioned, in terms of who we are as PELAM, through our network, we have different interventions, and some of the interventions are around agroecology and sustainable natural resource management. We also have interventions around advocacy to ensure our policy processes consider all the issues that are pertinent for thriving within the agriculture sector, but specifically the agroecological sector. We also have a whole department where Ruth is heading, and this basically looks at agroecological markets and business development. And when we are working, we work with our member organizations and also smallholder farmers. But we also know that within the smallholder farmers, we have interest groups. We have the women, we have the elderly, and then we have the youth. Time immemorial in Uganda, we've always known agriculture as a punishment. In schools, if you did anything, then you're told go and dig. And that has also resulted a lot in most of us shunning agriculture and looking at it at retirement. And we are here to change that narrative, because increasingly we are having youth coming up in Uganda, because it's known world over. Uganda is one of the countries that has a youthful population. I think we rank second, and that means that most of the people, most of the youth are unemployed. And for us to be able to offer a solution, we had to innovate ways in which we can interest the youth in loving agriculture, especially agroecology. Why agroecology? Because agroecology is a science. There are many definitions, but to kind of unpack it, it's a science, it's a practice, it's a movement. Now, I'll look much more in terms of the practice and what exactly we are doing to answer your question. So in terms of youth involvement, we started up a project that was in 2020, and this project was funded by the Netherlands Food Partnership, and we call it the Youth in Agroecology Learning and Business Track Africa. It's implemented in 4 countries, that is Uganda, led by Pelham Uganda. Then we have our counterparts in Ethiopia, in Kenya, and also in Rwanda. And this is basically intended to see how we create employment through agroecology, interesting the youth and giving them a business sense within agroecology, but also trying to address the many questions that are affecting our food sustainability. So we are also trying to enhance food sustainability by ensuring that agroecology provides sustainable, lasting, and nutritious food systems or food options. So what are we doing? We are organizing, or we have enhanced over 300 youth in terms of linking them to various agroecology entrepreneurs in a form of a mentorship for them to know, understand, and appreciate how you can get agroecology to bring you food on your table, but also enhance your income. We've also been able to take them through learning ventures, which we call caravans, through Uganda, but also the different countries. And here we are trying to tap into that innovation. Youth are very innovative. They are very ambitious, and they have solutions. All we have to do is tap into those solutions, show them that they are viable, and then support them, which we call the incubation. So we have also been able to ensure over 120,000 youth have gone through this process of mentorship, incubation, and some have even been given seed capital to enhance their businesses in all these 4 countries. So we also now trying to see how do we put them into markets. And yesterday we were celebrating our youth summit, which we call the Youth Regional Summit, where all the youth in these different countries came to showcase their products. Very amazing products that they've added value to, right from honey, their spices. We have people who are providing solutions to the declining level of soil fertility through vermicompost and production of biorationals. These are things that are not toxic to the environment. These are things that are made from locally available solutions, because that is what agroecology promotes. Limited, if at all, no use of synthetic chemicals in terms of using them as pesticides, but also as fertilizers. And today we are having our very first Agroecology Market and Systems Expo.
Now, you've mentioned the term synthetic. Now, to many Ugandans today, they believe you cannot successfully be in commercial agriculture without using them, because then that would mean we are talking about organic fertilizers, organic pesticides, which one would believe accessibility, availability, of course that comes with costs and all that. And this is where I want to bring in Ruth. Is it still possible? Because the world today is looking at things that have been organically grown. But it seems hard to change the mindset of Ugandans. I don't want to mention chemicals here, but if you went to farmers in this country and were asking them, what do you use for pesticides? What kind of fertilizers do you use? I know you people are in this field. At least 85% will have this synthetic, isn't it? And maybe you have like a 10% that are in organic, using organic fertilizers, organic pesticides. And this is the aim of Pelham, to see that people go the organic way. Is it still possible? What experience have you found with farmers? So, I was speaking to some who told me, something I've gotten from a plant or 2 plants to treat kanakawuka.
Okay, thank you very much. We are going to start, because you talked about mindset change. It's a mindset issue. what got us here in the first place? What got us to completely depending on synthetic? Why are we completely dependent on synthetic? Let's think about it. Because our grandparents used to plant as well. They used to take care of plants and take care of their crops and trees and everything and the environment when they didn't need the synthetic fertilizers or pesticides. Now, I'm going to use a simple example. When you have two children, I'm going to use an example. They are neighboring each other. One is eating very well, balanced diet, yes? Their bodies are strong and everything. And then another one is not eating well, the nutrition is not very good. When a disease comes, who is most affected? It's definitely the one who is not eating very well. Let's go back to our soils, right? If you're feeding your soil very well, you're taking care of the organisms within the soil, they are breaking down the soils very well, they are taking care of the soils. If a disease comes, the plants will be able to take care of themselves without you needing to apply the synthetic pesticides. And you won't need to apply the synthetic fertilizers because the ground is taking care of itself, right? So, but we lost that. There is a point we started now applying everything, applying the fertilizers, applying the pesticides, and the soil started dying slowly. And what made it die? It is the specific organisms that were breaking down the soils very well.
Many farmers tell you today that I can't plant without having a fertilizer.
Thank you.
And they have made it mandatory. You're going to plant.
Yes. And when will you stop? When will you stop applying echijimusa like you've said? That won't stop. But if you start letting the ground take care of itself, eventually, actually, there is an argument commercially. It is not possible to take care of 5 acres of land in terms of organic fertilizer. It's actually possible. Slowly start letting the ground take care of itself. And as years come by, you will stop even applying manure because now the ground is alive again. You will start, because the ground is already gone by now, you have to apply manure, you have to apply all the organic fertilizers at this point. But the more you let it take care of itself, it will be better. And then you will find it much easier than having to apply these synthetic organisms. And then it will become commercial. You will be applying less intensive labor on that ground. So a mindset is, when you see a disease, apply medicine. Why don't you apply the practices that make the ground alive, to make your plants alive? Why don't we do that? Why do we think there is always something that takes something away? It's like when you have a headache. They will tell you, these days you've had, instead of taking Panadol, take a lot of water. Why don't you take a lot of water instead of applying medicine to everything? Because water then will take away the headache tomorrow. It will take away the headache for the rest of the month. But the Panadol will take away the headache for 2 hours. So it can be commercial if our mindset is in the right place. So we can tell the youth that is possible.
Well, very interesting to hear. The soil can take care of itself if we have the right farming practices. Now, going back to Josephine, under Pelham you also push for indigenous plants.
Yes.
This has always attracted my attention, because much as we look at animals being extinct, there are some plants that I used to know and we used to look for. Today they're hardly to come by. They'll tell you, you want that? Maybe for medicinal. Sometimes it could be a, I don't know the English word. There's a specific indigenous mango. It's called Kona. I don't know the botanical name of it. Yeah, even alone these ones that have come in, cropped, whatever, but that kind of indigenous. That time told me you can look all over the village and you won't find that mango tree. What much as you still feel you want to eat it, it had original sugars. No, it had, for which you don't have to climb. You wake up one morning and there are mangoes there all over. You know, you just pick them the following and all that. So why do you push for indigenous? And really, is this still something that we can maintain and have? Because now we look at a number of excuses.
Yes.
They will develop, this is resistant to this, resistant to that. Look at what we're doing. Maize shifting longe to longe, every time cassava, this new, that new. So how do we still protect, and what is the essence for our viewers to understand that you push for indigenous? Oops.
Thank you so much, Robert. I want to say it's not yet too late for us to build back better our Uganda, to build back and conserve our indigenous heritage. And it's so beautiful, especially here in the central region, where people and the culture is still very, very much strong in terms of tradition, in terms of indigenous practices. And this is what we are trying to promote in Uganda, but also in Africa. And you've asked a very important question. These indigenous varieties, I want to say, are still existing. However, in very, very small quantities. And as Pelham, this year we shall be having our 12th, meaning we've had series of them, indigenous and traditional food and seed fair. And the theme this year is also anchored to the African Union theme on using indigenous and traditional knowledge to build resilience of our nutritious food systems. And why are we saying this? Because you rightly said it, that mango, that kagogwa, does not taste the same as the improved varieties that we have. And even the GMOs, for instance, that our country, our neighbors are trying to ensure that the markets are open to. And why are we doing this? COVID gave us a very good experience. That everybody started looking for a neem. That lemon that is very, very bitter. We started looking for all herbs. Anything was medicine at that point in time. As long as they told you that helps you relieve, that can, decongest your nose, that can help. We all went to that. And what was everybody saying? Avoid fast foods. Go back to the foods that we used to eat. Take molokoni. Take that soup. It will help you relieve a lot of things. Why? Because of the value that these things have, because of the nutritious component that they have, because of the safety that is embedded within our indigenous foods. Because increasingly, we are having studies relate some of the non-communicable diseases to the foods that we are eating. Because continuously when you spray them with synthetic chemicals, when you spray them with all this kind of herbicides, it reduces on the value. You're instead taking in more toxins. You're taking in antibiotics that increasingly reduce on your capacity and immunity to fight any kind of disease, which is not the case. Because if you went back to the basics, our great-great-grandparents never fell sick. They were the strongest of the kind, but what is it with us now? We are having increasing incidences of very many diseases that we don't know amongst ourselves as adults, but even amongst our children that can't even hold a flu for a week. You'll find a child is in hospital because of a flu. We are linking it to very many health things. I'm not a medical person, so I don't want to go into that area, but we are linking all this and trying to understand. And the only way we can do that is let's conserve our indigenous foods. Let's conserve our indigenous seeds so that even after that, we can go back to that opportunity. We can go back and till those foods that were very nutritious, that were resistant to climate change, that were resistant to pests and diseases.
Very well said. Of course, now in commercial agriculture, we are looking at yields.
Yes.
The yields have become yields. This is business. You need more productivity. If you're in tree planting and a mango, that improved varieties can give you maybe a week 100 mangoes, and then our indigenous, because maybe the yields weren't that many. So people in commercial agriculture would say, no, man, these are bigger, you get more, so we better go for this.
Robert, I want to demystify that, because markets have preferences. And there is nobody who will come and take your mango, however big it is, when it's tasteless. Now, as we are increasing on our improved varieties, and our friends in the research laboratories here in Naro have done a lot in terms of improving different varieties. There's a time we had bananas, and what happened? We started labeling them the Kawanda banana. Where even when somebody said that one is from Kawanda, I don't want that one. Give me the indigenous one. Why? It was bigger in size, in that you can even comfortably tell Robert that this goes for 60,000.
It was even taller than me.
Exactly. But where did all that end? We went back to, our Nachtembe. We've gone back to Menyamagari, that is what we are looking at, because the taste is different. It gives you that nostalgic remembrance of where you came from. What we have now won't. GMOs will actually do more disaster if we went that way, because you constantly have to keep on buying them from the person who has them. We won't even be able to trade or exchange seed the way we used to. And that is why we are working together with our partners to launch My Food is African. Why? Because that food has a lot of value. Maybe as Ugandans, as Africans, now is the time for us to ask ourselves, what is the motive behind destroying our African food? That's a question I'm putting to the nation and to the researchers and to all the people that are pushing for genetically modified foods.
Now, going back to Ruth, she's explained the indigenous bit of it, and really I want to believe every Ugandan watching us, anybody wherever you are, we must preserve our indigenous. And I like the fact that you've well demystified the thinking that we look at productivity vis-a-vis the specialness in some of these. And you gave that banana. I remember one time, someone told me, it is something like bogoya you eat and all that. But away from that, I'll go to Ruth. Now, Ruth, when you talk about organic agriculture, which people are pushing for, how do we train people? Are there ways that we can have, we may not have the synthetic ones, but maybe the farmers can be able to, because commercial farming is about maximization of profits.
Yes.
And if I'm going to go into commercial farming, I'll need to ensure that I limit what I spend on. So how do we ensure that if they are not using synthetic pesticide fertilizers, then they can use things that they can make? Do you have where you factor in that maybe we can make our own fertilizers, we can make our own pesticides? Because today the Ugandan farmer, they get excited when people come and buy what they have produced. But many of them don't calculate their input.
Thank you.
No, tell you, they're very excited. Such as, then when you ask him, let's calculate. That's when you tell him, actually, you've gotten 2 million, but you've operated under loss. They count how much they spent on seed, then the time, the water, those need to calculate. So if you want them to be in business, then what substitute do they have for this synthetic?
Okay, thank you very much. And I'll continue with what I ended. It is, does it have to be a replacement in terms of the pesticides? Doesn't it have to be in replacing the practice? Yes? Because if the practice changes, if you mulch, you won't need to irrigate, because when it rains, the waters will be, the water within your farm will be kept within the ground. So now you're not even spending on effort that you put in order to irrigate, right? If it is the plant that is already strong because of the strong soils, do you need to apply pesticides, any type of pesticide? No, because the plant is strong enough. Because it's been eating well, it's been fed well by the organisms within the ground, everything. It has the nitrogen, it has the potassium, now it's strong enough. You're not spending already in there because you did something that is already maintaining the plants. So what I'm trying to say is, you don't have to replace, we don't have to apply the whole time. But if you have to apply, we have a number of input, who are organic, input dealers, input innovators, people who are innovating, who are developing these products, organic fertilizers, organic pesticides, and we have them, they are growing slowly every day. As when they notice actually there is a market for it, they innovate something every day. They innovate something every day, and they are marketing, which is going to take me to something that we are doing today. We have the Agroecological Market Systems Expo. Now, this is bringing a platform, because when we talk about organic or agroecology, this is a sector on its own that is growing on its own. But we've been having a lot of gaps. in terms of we have the input dealers who are innovating and coming up with the fertilizers, with the pesticides and all that. Then we have researchers who are doing a lot of research on organic production, organic products, organic pesticides and all that. We have all the people, actors within the chain. We have entrepreneurs who are processing organic products in Uganda, but the consumers don't know about it. Hotels don't know that these products are there, yet they have visitors who are demanding the products. So we are creating a platform for all these actors, all these people, all these stakeholders within the agroecology system to come in one place, interact, network, so that they know, actually, yeah, if I need input, I can find it with this person that I met at the maze. Actually, the function today, we call it a maze. I can contact this one. If I need to understand the organisms or the properties within my fertilizer or the properties within my that I've innovated, I'll work with the researcher that I met. So we are slowly growing this sector so that it becomes a really strong sector where we understand each other. I want to talk about something else as well in terms of application and in terms of saving and calculating your business. And this is a normal practice, like you've said, where farmers just think, okay, I'm going to plant and then sell without calculating. And that is a very, very big challenge for the youth. I want to go back to the youth, especially, where they do the same practices because they are learning it from their parents and they are not calculating everything. And there is something we forget as farmers. I'm a farmer as well. There's something that we forget. When you don't spend, you've actually earned. I don't know if you know that. When you were supposed to buy food, but you haven't bought, you've instead gone to your garden. You've earned money because you were supposed to buy a bunch of matoke, but you haven't. When you have chicken at home, but you needed chicken, right? Visitors have come, but you've gone to your chicken. And you've now just slaughtered the chicken. You've saved money. So we need to also count that when we eat, that would have been, when we eat food in the house, that would have been an expense, meaning I made money. I made 10,000 today. So as we are counting the books as farmers, we need to count those that would have been expenses and record them as expenses. Then at the end of the day, or income as well. It would have been an income, but I probably was able to use that money for something else, right? So if we calculate that very clearly, we are able to sell and avoid issues of selling. Actually, they call it selling kamuri. Yeah? When you've put a lot in your coffee, and then someone says, you give me 3 million. I'll give you 3 million, give me the kamuri. So you will know, you'll be like, no, I would rather sell my own coffee because depending on how much I've spent in this, I won't be earning at 3 million. So accounting is very key for farmers. And if farmers are thinking they are going to go into business in farming, they have to treat it as a true business. As a business, they have to follow all principles of business. It's very key because if you treat it as, how do they call it when you're, I normally say, are you in business or are you busy? I always ask that when I'm working with farmers. Are you in business as a farmer or are you busy?
And some are in farming as a pride or visited a number of VIPs, elite people. Weekend I'm at the farm, and when you analyze the farm, it has his funny cows, it has some banana plantations. It's for prestige. That weekend families together farm. We go to the farm. We go to, have a farm in the village. But when you sit down and make calculations, he's busy, but he's not in business. It's just for prestige. Farm, we are MP, farm. But they're not making sense.
Yeah, and I will tell you something. It's okay. It's okay to be busy if you know that's what you're doing.
Yes.
But if you don't know, if you think you're in business but you're simply busy, that's where the problem comes. Because then you need to practice business. Practices, you need to do business things. Because like we have singers in Uganda. artists who do art just as something that they love. A farmer is allowed to do the same. But if you're complaining about markets, you're complaining about poverty, and you're thinking farming is going to get out of this, you better get into business and stop being busy. And that's a very a message to the youth who are going into farming.
Well, Josephine, you want to supplement something?
Yes, I wanted to supplement. For the people that are into farming, the category that you've talked about, and the ones that Ruth says are busy, I actually commend them for the initiative, because these are people that are feeding themselves. However poor the quality of the cow is, it's at least giving him 1 liter of milk. And they do this mostly because they lack the knowledge. They've not reached out, or us as civil societies that are into this promoting organic agriculture maybe do not even know that they are there, but they need to be supported. So for me, I commend them. You asked a question on where can we get the organic and agroecological fertilizers and other inputs. Within our membership, we have very many. Ruth already said we are 66 member organizations, and some of these are specialists in this area. And we even have centers of excellency in agroecology, where we're even working with Uganda Matters University. Uganda Matters University has a whole research that it's doing on using black soldier fly larva to replace it as a feed nutrient, especially protein content, in the feeds that we are using to feed our poultry. We also have Rusidi. Rusidi is in Mityana. That is a center of excellency in producing biorationals. These are different concoctions that are gotten from different plant materials and used to address various pests and insects within agroecology. And these are training institutes that are trying to ensure that there's that sustainability and replication of these best practices. But even Pelham, as an institution, we have an Elam center in Mityana, where we shall be establishing a biofertilizer unit to make biochar. Biochar is made as a result of burning different residues that are very rich in carbon content, and you use this as fertilizer. Very simple things. Use your maize cobs, for instance, coffee husks that we throw away, at times we use as mulching material. How do we recycle this? So this whole notion that they're expensive, they are not available, I see is basically because of the lack of knowledge. And as Pelham, we are working closely with our partners in Kenya to work on the Knowledge Hub for Eastern Africa, which is having a lot of information that you can click just at a click of a button, and you can be able to access all this information. It takes you through a practical guide of how this can be done. And we're working this with other partners internationally. FIBO, which is a well-known research institution in organic agriculture. We're working with Access Agriculture, which does farmer documentation videos all over the country, all over the world, on how different farmers are addressing different issues, especially pest control, fertility control, in crop and animal husbandry. So these are all available, and we just need to popularize it more for people to have this information and knowledge, and then be able to replicate.
Now also, same thing triggers my mind. You know, when you talk about youth in agroecological markets, one of the biggest challenges of the youth has always been knowledge first.
Yes. Yeah.
That second has been ability to put what they have learned, the knowledge, into power, into practice. You find that about 80% don't own property, don't even own land. Those that own land in this generation, most of now farming is more for the rural youth. You find they don't have startup capital. They don't have access to finances. They don't have curators to put as security. They're literally there. Sometimes when they have the information, you call them for workshops, maybe you see them, some are devoted, they will come, then they will begin. If they have, because sometimes they can get land from grandparents, from parents, at least can cause a second. But how do you have financial inclusion of any form or assistance? Josephine.
Thank you so much. Yesterday, during the Yalta Regional Summit, we had a number of actors. And one of those was actually online, Stanbic Bank. Sorry, I'm marketing smart Stanbic Bank. But these messages have been flowing all over our phones. And these are people that are telling us that they have agriculture financial packages that are being given to anybody who is interested in agriculture. So this is one place we can go. But even within the development partners that we're with, we were with Shona yesterday. And Shona clearly told us they are into agriculture financing. We agree that land is an issue of contention, and not all of us have the land tenure security. You may have, but there's an issue of ownership and utilization. But Uganda is very beautiful and blessed that even if you don't have, Robert, you can go and hire. Some of us started by hiring land, where you had 1 acre, you hire it, plant your maize, sell, and that is how we're able to go. There is this whole misconception, and different entrepreneurs have kept on saying it, start small. Start small, know how you can manage, learn from it, and then move on. But at least I'll move it back to Ruth, because this is what today's event is all about.
Yes. In addition to what Josephine has been talking about, where she ended is where I'll begin. Then I'll go into the different actors that are going to be at the Amaze. Start small and grow slowly. There's something I've learned working with people who provide financial services. That is proof of concept. Whatever business you're thinking of starting, you need to prove concept. And in most cases, it's not that you have to prove in terms of how big the business is. It's show that you have customers, show that you have the energy, show that you have the passion, show that the business has life. Then they will, after looking at that, they will be able to provide financial services. But most of the youth today, they come up with the idea, sit down, develop the concept in writing, and then go around showing, oh, I'm thinking of starting this, I'm thinking of starting this. I want to start this big. Please provide me with financial services. But the financial service provider will be what shows that the business will move, besides what you've written. So start your business, however small it is. Start it. Fight through it with the small funds here. We talked about yesterday during the summit. We talked about counting on friends and family to start it so that you prove concept. Then take that concept. I have 10,000 customers. I have 1,000 customers who will be able to buy the product that I'm thinking of, but my problem is supplying. I have a problem of supply. If you provide me with this type of capital, I'll be able to grow my business from where it is to the next step, to the next step. Now, there is something else that happened in terms of discussions at the Youth Summit yesterday. It was delayed gratification. The youth today like instant gratification. You've started your business and it's profitable, right? And you're thinking, oh, so because of this profit, I'm going to buy a car. I'm going to buy clothes, I'm going to buy everything. And yet a growing business requires profit coming and growing it slowly and slowly and slowly. If youth in agriculture think about delayed gratification, that will also help towards financing your business into growth. Because those are the things that financial service providers are looking out for. If I give this person this loan, won't it go into looking very nice and buying cars and everything? How do you show your practice in business? What are your principles? What are your values in business? These are very key things that have to happen for the youth to access financial services. And there are several financial service providers, like she has said. There are those that are NGO-based, and they are actually sometimes their requirements are not as stringent as the commercial banks. We are going to have some of them at the show today, at the expo today. Then there are those that are bank-based as well, who have percentages according to the Bank of Uganda. So there are many service providers that are interested in funding or giving capital to agriculture. And actually now that the sector is growing, the agroecology sector is growing, we are getting those that are specifically interested in funding agroecological entrepreneurs, especially the youth. So it's growing and the services are coming up. Yes.
Well, Josephine, in the interest of time, let me have your parting shot, of course, with more regarding the Action Week, which I know began and soon will be winding it up.
Thank you so much. This week is what we are calling the Agroecology Week of Action. And we've had already, yesterday we had the very first Youth in Agroecology Learning and Business Track Africa Regional Summit. Today we shall be having the very first of its kind, Agroecology Market and Systems Expo, where we are going to have a whole range of different value chain development actors coming in to kind of, provide their solutions to the youth, but also to the other farmers that are promoting agroecology. On Thursday, we shall be looking at the 4th National Agroecology Actors Systems, National Agroecology Actors Symposium. And here we are looking at basically how we are unlocking the potential of scaling up agroecology, because we know that we have different barriers to scaling up agroecology, one of which is finance, the other could be policy, and we are working closely with the Ministry of Agriculture and Animal Industry to see that we have the National Agroecology Strategy in place so that we can scale up and replicate, but also have the buying and the financial commitment from our government. Then on Friday, we shall wind it up with the 12th Indigenous Food and Knowledge, Indigenous Knowledge and Food System and Food Fair, which will also be under the theme of clearly relating how indigenous and traditional foods help in building resilience in nutrition. So please come and join us. This will also have an online presence. And the physical one, unfortunately, is by invite because of what is happening in the country. But please, you can just visit our website, our social media handles, for you to be able to follow us online and participate in this discussion. So for me, it's basically calling up Ugandans. Now is the time. We have the opportunity. It's still within our mandate to revamp our lost glory of indigenous foods, to revamp our lost glory in terms of organic agriculture.
Well, I want to thank you so very much, ladies, for your time and, of course, the information that you've given to our viewers, more so the youth. This is the time to revive the glory of this country in terms of indigenous, and I love the word indigenous, plants and crops, but also ensure, I love it when I say farming God's way. These things that we began, we must ensure that we go back to the Garden of Eden, which I believe is in Uganda, the Pearl of Africa. Well, have a lovely day. Ruben will be here, take you through the world of sports. Thank you, Josephine Akialuyimba, who is the country director, Peram, and also Ruth Nabagala, the program officer, Peram. God bless you.
Bannayuganda bannange, mubadde mukimanyi nti tufiirwa obutonde ku misinde egyayiriiri. Entobazi